welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Tegan, and I'm joined with my co-host,
Hello.
Sadie. And we are here to chat about dating, specifically how to date in real life, to get away from the dating apps, or on the other hand, if you're in a relationship, how to keep the sparks alive if you're in a long-term committed relationship or you're married, how to continue to quote-unquote date during all that fun stuff. But before we dive in, I think we're going to do a connection card. And I'm very excited to say we have now moved on from the yellow category. We are into green, which yellow was break the ice. Green is it's time to go a little deeper.
Okay, here we go.
So, are you
I'm ready? You know me, I love a good deep chat. So I'm like, let's go a little deeper.
I'd love for it to be like the most surface answer question, like after all that. Okay. What irritates you more than it should?
Why is this so hard for me?
I know. For me, the thing that's tripping me up is more than it should.
Yeah.
Because all the things that I'm thinking of, I'm like, no, I should be irritated.
This is,
But
okay, this is like very weird, but I don't have to deal with this often, but I am very like tidy, and in my house, everything has a place, and like everything, this is going to make me sound crazy and I'm aware of that, but everything's also like at a slight angle. When I put things in the fridge, like I put the English label facing out, like little things like that. So when I have people over, or I imagine like myself living with somebody one day, I'm like, this is something I'm going to have to like change about myself, because I get very like irritated where I'm like, oh, that's not in its exact spot anymore, where I know that's a bad thing. And I don't really get like irritated, like I would rather just go and like fix it to like fix it, where I wouldn't be like, oh my god, you put the milk in the fridge backwards. Like I wouldn't yell at somebody for it, but I always feel like I notice it and it's like, oh, I'm just gonna fix that, where it's like that's so unnecessary. Like it's not good to be this OCD about the things in your house. I don't know. I blame though working at Anthro for as long as I did, because you are programmed to standardize, is what they call it, where it's like if you see a rack of clothes and the hangers are like poking out, you need to go hug the rack and like level out all the hangers. Every night we spent 2 hours every night after the store closed, 2 hours before the store opened, cleaning the store and standardizing it so all the colors lined up perfectly. And now I feel like I just take that approach to my house, where it's like everything is standardized to Anthro standards, which in my head I'm like, that's great, everybody wants to live in an Anthro store. And then it's like, but that's not how real life works. So I
thought of what irritates me when you were talking, and it's unclear dress codes at weddings. I text Sadie about this like 25 times a week. And I'm like, why does this bother me so much? This has nothing to do with like, why do I care? But for some reason, it literally is my biggest like pet peeve in my entire life. Like it triggers me.
Yeah, that is the perfect answer.
That would be my yeah. I don't know what my problem is.
I think
it does irritate me.
I can understand though. Again, Tegan's like told me a lot about her irritations with this. But I'm like, what you're saying like makes sense, because like I think people don't know the dress code themselves, and then they're like telling people to dress a certain way, and you're just like, but are you sure you know what you're asking me? And then I think that's where the irritation comes from, where it's like, just because you say formal black tie, do you actually mean formal black tie? You know, like I think there's just a misunderstanding, and then you're like, okay, what do you actually want from me? And in that case, I'm like, that's irritating, because you don't want to go overdressed, but you also don't want to go underdressed to a wedding. Like,
it's like a fear of looking stupid, where I'm like, I want to follow the dress code because I don't want to be rude, but then I don't want to show up and look stupid. And the monetary side of it, where I'm like, do you know what you're asking? Like, we are invited to a lot of weddings this year that are black tie. And so for men, that means you have to wear a tuxedo, and it's $300 per rental. So that means my husband's spending $300, and then we have to stay in a hotel, and then we have to buy a wedding gift and all that good stuff, which seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
Maybe not. My wedding, the dress code was cocktail. Right. And I can say, if anyone's listening who's planning a wedding, I do not remember what anyone wore.
Like, you were busy thinking about what you were wearing.
It doesn't seem that important.
As the bride.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think that's the two parts of it. The other thing is, I think people just don't understand the dress codes. A lot of the weddings I'm invited to are dress codes that aren't even a thing. Like, people make up their own now. And so it's like you can't even Google what it is because they're not real dress codes. Like, I'm going to one that's formal / black tie, which isn't a thing. Those are two different dress codes. And then I'm going to one that's beach formal.
Oh, gosh.
That, again, is not a thing. So all this to say, it's very triggering for me. But I'm like, also, why does it matter?
Right.
Like, it's nothing to do. Like, I could wear... If I wanted to be petty, I could show up in a full ball gown, because that's what the dress code is, and be like, yeah, here I am, and that's life. Like, why do I care? But I do.
Okay, that's fine. I feel like we both got to... we both got to rant a little bit. We know these things shouldn't bother us, but they do. We're aware of it. That's important. I don't know.
I'm like so fired up right now. Okay, we need to move on.
That's so funny. Okay, well, we can jump into the main part of our episode before Tegan, gets any more worked up about the wedding dress code.
Yeah.
But we're going to, talk all about dating, as Tegan mentioned at the beginning of this episode. I know a lot of our listeners are single. We've put out polls on our Spotify before asking you, are you single? Are you in a relationship? And almost always / every time we do this, everyone is overwhelmingly single. So we know you guys love the dating episodes. So hopefully this gets you inspired to date through the spring, summer season. But more importantly, hopefully it gets you inspired to get off the dating apps and meet people in real life. I kept seeing at the beginning of like 2024 how dating apps are out. They are canceled. Nobody actually wants to meet their partner on a dating app. And I can vouch for that myself. And even it's, I think, like shifting where guys that I've met on dating apps, but we aren't talking to each other on dating apps anymore. We either like follow each other on Instagram or we text periodically, whatever. Like they're all like, oh, are you still on dating apps? And all these guys are not. They're like, I just don't want to meet my person that way. And even as a girl on dating apps, you're going through, you're like, where are all the good guys? And I know I'm like, maybe you're not looking for guys and I'm just talking about my own experience here, but it's like, where is my person? Because I'm not seeing who I want to see. And it's like, chances are they're just not on the app. So all of this is to help you figure out dating in real life without the apps. If that is your goal to meet somebody this year and you don't want to rely on dating apps to do that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me as someone in a relationship, and this might be like annoying to hear, but I think that to find a person that you like click and connect with, you have to connect as friends first. So I feel like it might be a good way to think about it is like, how do you make friends? Obviously you can be making friends through like apps or whatever, but a lot of times, at least for me, you're making friends through just like interacting in real life or those sorts of things. So I think that that's a good way to think about things. And so I think the most obvious way to be meeting people and connecting is through friends, whether it's like you're invited to a party and you meet someone at a party, or like your siblings have friends, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm laughing to myself because when you first started talking about having friends and like having a friend vibe, I'm watching Friends right now, as I always am. And it made me think of how when Chandler and Monica first start dating and Joey's like, I want to find that. And they're like, well, the important part was we were friends first. So Joey's like, okay, it's between like Phoebe and Rachel who I'm going to date because you need to be friends first. So the advice here is not to look at your existing friends and date them. It's to make more friends. Find people the same way you find friends. So funny. But yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it sounds so simple, but also intimidating at the same time. But I feel like, all the advice we've given on how to make friends in your 20s as an adult applies for dating as well. And I think when you're putting yourself out there, you're signing up for something that you have an interest in doing. Therefore, you're going to meet like-minded people. So I guess this is actually a second thing to what you were saying, but just, putting yourself out there to connect with like-minded people. You might make more friends who then introduce you to somebody. Like maybe you go to the yoga studio, you have like a workout bestie at the yoga studio and her brother is single and eventually she sets you up, you know, or maybe you're going to the gym and you run into this cute guy every time you go to the gym and then you and him, you know, set up a time to see each other outside of the gym and that turns into something. Like I think just putting yourself in positions to meet people is definitely the biggest thing. And I feel like the best mindset to have around this, because again, it sounds simple, but it can be frustrating when you're doing things and you're like, okay, but I'm not meeting anybody. Like I went for dinner with a friend a few weeks ago and she was like I signed up for this writing class and it's me and a bunch of old dudes like in their 40s and 50s in this writing class. But like I signed up because like I wanted to do it, but I was like, oh, maybe I'll like meet somebody. She signed up for a dance class. That one, she was like, I'm just like meeting other girls my age or like gay guys. She's like, that's fine. But like, I was like, I'm doing the things. I'm signing up. I'm putting myself out there and I'm still not meeting people. But I feel like the mindset to have around this is you're getting something out of it anyway. So even if you're not meeting somebody, you're still going to the gym. You're still doing that workout class, that dance class. You're still, you know, getting something out of it. And I feel like you need to focus on that rather than doing those things only to meet a partner, if that makes sense. So try to, I don't know, change your mindset. Otherwise, it can also feel like dating apps where it's like, okay, well, I'm doing it, but it's not working out. And then it can feel draining and exhausting.
Yeah.
And I like your idea too around also just asking people. Like, this is something I feel like I've kind of done, but not blatantly, but asked my friends to set me up with people. Be like, do you know anybody who's single? And I feel like there can be, as a single girl, I know the single shame very, very well, where you might be like embarrassed to ask for that, or you're not sure you actually want to be set up with somebody, like, because it could just be like weird, awkward if it doesn't work out, if you don't like them, you feel pressure around it. Like, I understand that, but it could also be a really great way if you're like ditching the apps altogether, just to ask literally everybody, do you have a single friend to set me up with? Or even like Tegan, I could be like, does Tyrell have any friends? Or like, you know, your friends, partners, even your coworkers, like literally just ask anybody to set you up, and you never know what could come from it.
Yeah, totally. I did want to ask, how do you feel about dating coworkers?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked that, because I thought about writing this in our notes and I didn't. I totally forgot. I don't like it. So I think it's because, hold on, let me backtrack. I don't think it would work for me because I'm somebody who like really prioritizes my career. I think I would need that separation. Even like I have friends at work that turn into like real friends, and I have a hard time sometimes differentiating them as my coworker and my friend. And when I get annoyed with them at work, I'm just like, fuck this person. Like, I don't want to hang out with them. I don't want to text them. But then it's like when we do have just friendship time, I'm like, okay, this was nice. But I get like very worked up in my head. So I'm like, for me, I don't think it would work. However, I know that's how a lot of people do meet their person. I think it could, if you don't work in close contact with this person, like if you're in like completely different departments that don't overlap, I think that's good and like has a higher chance of actually working out. But for me, I'm like, if I were to meet somebody through work, I feel like, and we worked closely together, I would have to be like, okay, either one of us needs to change jobs or something, because I just don't see that working for me. And I can see it causing like a conflict of interests and just, really hard separating work from real life. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I feel like neutral about it. I know some people are like, never date coworkers because it's just messy. I don't really agree with that. Well, I don't think you should hook up with coworkers, but I think genuinely dating, I think is fine. Like,
I think the opposite.
oh, really?
Not the opposite.
Interesting.
I think, I don't know. I feel like I have so many really awful Scorpio things to say here that would get me canceled.
I feel like that's where the mess comes in.
Yeah.
If it's just like, we're just hooking up, or
hooking
where
up
I'm
is
like,
messy,
if you're dating someone and then it's like you get married, no one's going to be like, that's messy that you were dating at work. I don't know. But it is risky.
Yeah.
Like, I have worked with a couple who met at the workplace and they got married last year. And I'm like, that's great. But they were like, we have to keep it a secret because like we didn't want the mess that was associated with it. And at that same time, I was working with another couple who broke up. And they're like, now we don't even speak, and like we can't work together anymore. And it's like messy. So I'm not like pro it, but I'm not anti dating at work.
My thing, I think it could be a good way to meet people, but I just think long term you can't work with them and date them at the same time. Like, I think if you use work to like find your person, or not even use it, if you happen to find your person through work, I'm just like, okay, I think one of you should switch jobs eventually. And maybe I think there's a lot of people that disagree with that. I was thinking back, and it's also just the whole secrecy. Like, I can get that being kind of like exciting and like add to a relationship, but I don't know if that's necessarily like a healthy thing, like long term again.
Or long term.
And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think I like it. Where the hooking up part, I'm like, it's less serious. I think it depends.
Yeah.
Like, I also think just hooking up in general is very messy, and people
that's true.
have very not great communication a lot of the time. So it's like, what are we actually doing here? I think can get messy. And if you're doing that with somebody you're seeing like all the time at work, it's not clear and it's just like messy. I think that can be extremely messy, but I don't know. Interesting question though. I'm thinking of people I know who have met through work, and one couple, they're now married, have 2 kids. And this is, I don't think anybody listens, but one of them worked in HR, which was funny to me, I thought. And because a lot of companies also have workplace policies around dating and, you know, relationships and stuff, so that it doesn't cause a conflict of interest. So if it's the idea being like, if one of the people in the relationship is like giving like a bias towards favoring their partner, essentially. So policies to prevent that from happening. So anyways, I found it funny he worked in HR, but they were like very secretive about it. And then once people started figuring it out, it was like, oh my God, obviously, you know, but then it was just like the secrecy kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But then like the guy ended up leaving the company, and he was just like, okay, no, in order for this relationship to be serious and like for us to not be a secret and like for it to be what it can be, he left the organization. And like I said, now they're married, have 2 kids, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. So interesting. And I also think, sorry, this is like just going off the rails now. I also feel like it's interesting because I feel like I'm a different person at work than in my friendship. So I'm like, and like outside of work, I'm like a very, I don't know, like professional, like very confrontational and like, I don't know, person at work, versus in my personal life, I'm very like goofy and silly. So I'm like, I don't even know if, I don't know. Interesting question tag. I'm thinking way too deeply about this as if it's our connection card question, but
yeah. I all this to say, I feel like it's not like, I don't think if you're looking for someone, you should set up rules about like, I can't meet them here or I can't. But then it's also like, be smart about it.
Yeah. And it's also like
advice,
adjust, right? Like if you meet somebody at work, then it's like, okay, what do we do now? You know, like I think this is something that I've struggled with. as somebody who is such a planner, is like doing
Mm.
something with the intention of meeting somebody and then having to have it all planned out before you even take on step one. And then it's like, in that case, you're just setting
Yeah.
yourself up for disappointment a little bit, but it's also like things never go to plan and you always have to adjust. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel like one key thing if you're trying to meet more people is to just say yes to more things. Again, this maybe sounds obvious, but it's like say yes to the parties, say yes to the events, and just say yes to being in opportunities to meet more people, because then you never know.
Yeah, 100%. And that's how you can, unknowingly meet mutual friends of a friend without even being like asking them to be set up with them. You know what I mean? So I love that. I
Yeah.
think outside of some of the other things we just listed out, if it's like gym, workout classes, things like that, other things you could like sign up for or try out or just put yourself out there in effort to maybe meet somebody is just like going out to different public spaces and community events, whatever that looks like to you. So that could be like signing up for some sort of hobby, if it's a like cooking class, a pottery class, like literally anything. Maybe it's like a bartending class or something like that. Just signing up for something like that. Again, you're still getting something out of it, even if you're not meeting somebody there, and do it as something like you're actually curious and like want to learn about. That's when you'll get the most out of it.
Yeah.
Even like co-working from coffee shops. I know I've mentioned that in the past, but sitting at like communal tables at coffee shops and sitting next to people who are also there rather than just, going somewhere, sitting at a table all by yourself, putting your headphones in and not being approachable. Same with bars. If you're going out with a friend for drinks, maybe you sit at the bar instead of at a table. Yeah, and just show that you're a little bit more open to people striking up conversation and you actually are putting yourself in a position for them to do that.
Yeah. I think another big thing is actually being the person to take the first step. So if you're sitting at a bar, start chatting to the person next to you. Or like if you see someone sitting by themselves, ask, "Can I sit with you?" Even if you're attending like a concert or the theater or whatever, and you're in line, like chat to the people in front of you. It can be intimidating, but I really like it because the risk is so low. Like if it's awkward or they're like clearly don't want to talk, you're like, okay, well, I'll never see that person again. And it can be a great way to meet people, like I've talked about before. I love like sitting with random people at a bar and then chatting to them just about like, what's your day been like? Or do you like the music they're playing? Whatever. And so that can be a really good way to meet new people.
Yeah, this is a moment of tough love, I think, for me, because I'm like, I think as women specifically, and if you're in like heterosexual relationships or looking for a male partner, we're taught as women for men to make the first move. If this is through movies, through books, through random stories we make up in our head, we're like, we wait for them to come over and talk to us in the bar, to ask for our number. And it's like something that I've been constantly been thinking about. I went to a dating event back in February, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, but it was like an in-person dating event. And there were a lot of people there, way more than I thought, and a good mix of girls and guys. And all the girls, we were all doing the same thing. Like, these guys are going to come over and talk to us. And, that's how these conversations will start. That's how the sparks will start flying, whatever. But my friends and I kind of all separated. And I was like, okay, first things first. Obviously, I hit the bar, grabbed my drink, and I was like, all right, I got nothing to lose. In this case, it was nice because I was like, I know everybody here is single and like, we're all here to date and mingle. So that took some of the pressure of approaching somebody off. But I was just like, I need to turn it on and be a little social butterfly. So I was just talking to as many people as I could. And something that guys consistently kept telling me was like, it's so refreshing that you just came over and started talking to me. And people were like, you're just so confident, you're so bubbly, you're so friendly. And again, like multiple people said this to me. And I'm like, obviously I had to have a pep talk with myself to turn on this like part of my personality to do this. But talking to these guys, I was talking to this one girl for a while, and he just how he was saying things, I was like, it was dawning on me how guys have the same fears and insecurities as us girls do about approaching somebody and talking to them. And to be honest, it's probably even worse for guys because girls they don't want them to feel uncomfortable or like they're being sketchy or that they're threatening them in any case. So as much as we think we want a nice man to come over to us randomly in public and be like, you're really beautiful, what are you doing Thursday night? Want to grab dinner? Like, if that situation were to actually happen, we would be like, red flag. Oh my God, this guy's so creepy. You know, so it's like, if you're out, you see somebody that you want to talk to, don't wait for them to come over and talk to you because chances are that's not going to happen. So, you know, go after it. If you see something you want to like explore, create that opportunity for yourself. And second, like, I think just have that perspective of like, as much as we want guys to come over and talk to us, it's intimidating for them as well. So we need to be open-minded and like not, I don't know, make them feel awful when they do come over and strike up conversation. I don't know, just something to be mindful of, I guess.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. As someone who only has brothers and is surrounded by men, I can confirm that they are like, you know, scared, embarrassed. They want to put themselves out there, but they don't know how. Like, it's not, I don't know. Not all dudes are like, have some master plan when it comes to women. Like, they're just little, I don't even know, little like puppy dogs running around. Like, what do I do?
We all fear rejection, right? Like, I feel like that's why girls don't want to go over to guys because they're like, what if he has a girlfriend and I didn't know? Like, then it's like, that's an awkward situation that I don't want to put myself in. Or like, what if I put myself out there and he's like, actually, no. Or thanks for this, but no. But it's like, guys deal with that all the time too, you know, and it's intimidating for them as well. So just, a moment of tough love. I feel like people probably needed to hear it. I know I always need to hear it because the other thing too is at the end of this dating event, I went with one of my last single friends actually, and I love her dearly. And at the end, she was like waiting for this guy to come over and ask her for her number. And I was like, girl, we don't have time. Like this, if you want this guy's number, ask him for it. You know, like I understand there's a principle around like if he wanted to, he would, and you know, all this stuff. But it's like, if you want something, go after it. Because I feel like comes a time in your 20s, especially as a single woman, where you're like, if I want it, I have to chase after it. And that's the case with anything, right? Like you can't just wait for everything to magically fall into place. So I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting now fired up about this. I was going to say, though, I think the last thing we were going to talk about for meeting people in real life was dating events. So I was just talking about a dating event I went to that was actually through the app Thursday, which I wanted to mention. This is like a very 2024 modern spin on a dating app. I thought it was Toronto-based, but it's actually from the UK, and they have events in the UK, New York, Toronto. They might have other cities as well, and I won't be surprised if they expand to other cities. So if this is new to you, you don't live in one of those cities, or you do, check it out regardless, because I really do think they'll expand. But essentially every Thursday, they set up an in-person event. You have to download the app to buy a ticket to the event, and that's where you also learn the location of the event. So rather than like swiping through people on the app, which you still do have an option to do, I believe, but it's essentially just bringing people together to an in-person event. So they announce a new location every Thursday. They sell tickets for the location and then for the event. And then you just show up to the location and you start to meet and mingle with other singles there. So I feel like it's just such a great way to use apps, but in a different way from swiping. And it just, it could be a fun way to explore the city as well as meet new people. You can go by yourself, with friends, whatever it is. So definitely check that out. I think if Thursday isn't in your area, then you could also look at things like Eventbrite or Facebook. Even Hinge and Bumble have in-person like dating events. So look for those and just sign up and see what happens. I feel like I've done quite a few dating events now where I feel like it's the same people. You know how like on dating apps you see like either a lot of the same people or
Yeah.
I don't know, you just kind of get like burnout. I feel like dating events will be the same if you do it a lot. I found there's a lot of overlap with people I see at different dating events. When I went to the Thursday event, there's people I had seen from another like company event that I had done before. So, or like another event through a different company. So I don't know. I feel like it's fun at first to switch things up. You might find it doesn't work long term, but just something to, again, put yourself out there. And what I love about it so much is, you know, everybody going is single in the same boat as you, looking for people. So it just makes it so much easier to just chat with people.
Yeah, I love that. I think to round out this episode, as I mentioned, I can give some tips and tricks if you are in a long-term relationship, how to keep the spark alive, I guess, or just like how to continuously date your partner, because I feel like that's important to keeping a relationship alive. And I think the most obvious thing is to carve time out for it. This might seem not very sexy, but I think it's just the realities, especially as you are older and you're busy, or if it's like you met your partner while at school or something like that. Once you start working, it can be quite difficult to still prioritize it, but the key is to actually prioritize it. So it's like continuing to book the time to do dates or marking time off in your calendar or whatever it is. I also think you can keep it cheap by elevating simple things like a movie night at home. You don't have to be just like sitting in your sweatpants and laying on the couch. You can make it nice. You can have snacks, whatever. Even just like a dinner date at home, I feel like can be a nice way. Instead of like, we're going to eat takeout on the couch, it's like, no, we're going to set the table with the nice stuff and have a nice dinner or get dressed up at home. I also think it's nice to make space in your budget for date nights, to keep that a priority. And one thing that I think is great is doing things that you would already be doing, but doing them together. And an obvious one to me is like the gym. If you go to the gym, it's like, come up with a way so that you and your partner can do it together. You'd already be doing it, so you might as well make it sort of like a bonding activity. Even just like my husband reads books I like so that we can then talk about it. If I'm going for a walk, I invite him and then we go on the walk together and then we talk about the books we've read or whatever. Watching the same TV shows, watching the same like YouTube videos, little things like that. It's very simple, but I feel like can really help with your like togetherness. Also, trying new things together can also be a great way. Even it can be as small as trying out a new class at your gym, or as big as like traveling to a new place together, whatever that might be. Another thing, which again maybe seems obvious, but I'm going to say, is to keep things sexy, where it's like, obviously when you live with the person and you've been together a long time, they've seen you at your most unsexiness, but it's like every once in a while it's nice to like dress up, like wear the good lingerie and really embrace the sexy vibes. And I know this sounds like the opposite of what I was just saying, but doing something separately, I also feel like can be really nice. So it's like, it's good to do things together, obviously, but then also doing things apart. Even things like getting ready separately, that's a lot sexier than like him watching you shave your legs, then put on Spanx. And even like arriving separately, I feel like has a very sexy vibe that I love. If it's like he's coming from work and you're coming from your work and meeting at dinner, that can be a lot nicer and can elevate a date. Again, I feel like none of these are like earth-shattering revelations, but I do feel like they're all valuable and worth saying. So those were my little tips and tricks.
Yeah, and I feel like what I love about that is there's so much about dating that I think us girls especially love. And then when you're with your partner, you're like, oh, I don't do those things anymore. Like, oh, I miss, getting dressed up and going on a date. And it's like, you can still do that. You should still do that with your partner. Like, I think the getting ready process is my favorite part of getting ready for a date, and like, taking that girly time just to like listen to my music, do my makeup. You can still do that even if you're, getting dressed up to meet somebody who knows you extremely, extremely well, or doing activity-based dates. Like, I love going on dates because I get to do new things or go to new restaurants, experience the city, do fun things, since I am a big activity date person. But it's like, just because you've been with your partner for years and years, like, doesn't mean you can't go on activity dates. Like, do those things together, And I actually feel like what people in long-term relationships have is obviously what single people like me are dating for, And it's not so that we can stop doing the dating experience. It's so that we can do those things with people who know us really well and are choosing to spend their time with us and like do those things together. So definitely just different mindset to have when you're in a long-term relationship, and keeping the romance alive. That's the other thing, where it's like, dating is just so fun, like, to romanticize it and like, but it's like you said, just find ways to do that in if it's mundane tasks or everyday routine with your partner, that can add a lot of magic to your relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, you guys, let us tell you, it has been a struggle recording this episode. Tegan and I, we've literally been doing this for 2 hours, because of my tech issues. So hopefully everything turned out okay, and hopefully you didn't even notice. But if you did notice us cutting in and out or whatever it is, we apologize, and thank you so much for bearing with us. All of that being said, we're wrapping it up, but we do drop a new episode every Tuesday. So make sure you subscribe and follow us on whatever app or like platform you're listening to this on, so you can see when those episodes drop. We also are on social media at Our Golden 20s. That's TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, all the places. We have Spotify playlists, and we also are on Patreon, which is your best way to show your support for the podcast. Maybe a little monetary boost so I can get a new laptop so these recordings go easier. No, I'm just kidding. But you can support us on Patreon. We also put up bonus content there, including bonus episodes and just like little blog posts and stuff like that. So definitely a good time over on Patreon. But that is everything for today. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.